They mocked her, ignored her, and underestimated her. To them, Clara was just another cleaning lady, moving silently through the hallways of Sterling and Hayes, invisible and insignificant. Little did they know that, behind that simple uniform and quiet demeanor, was a woman with more power than any executive in that boardroom. Have you ever stopped to think about how many underestimated people have the potential to change everything? Well, Clara didn't just change things, she flipped the script in a way no one could have predicted. And on the day everyone discovered her true role, it was like watching a movie that combines revenge and justice, only with an even more incredible twist. It was real. Now you're probably wondering, how did someone who spent years being ignored muster the courage, intelligence, and strength to confront the most powerful man in the company and take him down? The answer is simple. Clara knew how to wait. While everyone treated her as invisible, she was absorbing everything, planning each step, and gathering the tools to expose the truth. That's the difference between reacting and acting strategically. Isn't it ironic how the people we underestimate the most often have the most to teach us? Clara not only proved that, but also transformed an entire corporate culture in the process. And what about that epic moment in the boardroom? When Clara stood up and revealed that she wasn't just a cleaning lady, but the majority shareholder of the company, the shock and regret on the directors' faces said it all. Imagine the strength it takes to remain invisible for years, only to emerge at the perfect moment, armed with undeniable evidence and an unshakable plan. It wasn't just a story of justice, it was a story about how resilience, intelligence, and courage can shake the foundations of any corrupt system. Have you ever felt like you could do something similar if given the chance? If this introduction has already made you reflect, just wait until you hear all the details of Clara's journey. Because this isn't just a story of overcoming obstacles, it's a real story that shows how the most unlikely people can create the most profound transformations. And believe me, what you're about to discover might just change how you see yourself and the world around you. Clara wasn't just an employee at Sterling and Hayes. To many, she was like the wallpaper, there, but completely overlooked. At 48 years old, with 2 decades of dedication as a cleaning assistant, she was used to being treated as invisible. Executives and managers walked past her without even a simple "good morning," as if her presence was merely part of the pristine hallways of the Chicago building. Yet Clara carried something they could never understand: resilience and a keen eye capable of catching details others ignored. Imagine walking into an environment every day where you seem not to exist. How would you deal with it? Clara had her own way. She observed, learned, and silently grew stronger. Clara's routine began before sunrise. She navigated the cold streets of Chicago on a crowded bus, carrying a bucket and a purpose much greater than merely cleaning desks and floors. As she worked, she overheard fragments of conversations, noticed forgotten documents, and mentally recorded the small moments of disrespect she endured daily. To many, this would be enough to fuel anger, but Clara saw it as an opportunity for growth. Have you ever faced a situation like this? One where contempt transformed into the fuel for your determination. Clara knew her strength lay exactly where others only saw weakness. Over the years, Clara realized invisibility had its advantages. It allowed her to see what no one else could. Many Sterling and Hayes managers felt so comfortable ignoring her that they openly discussed things without filtering their words. Clara, however, wasn't just a passive listener. She absorbed everything and slowly started piecing together a much bigger puzzle. Have you ever noticed how much people reveal when they think no one is paying attention? Clara did exactly that. She turned disregard into insight, and every detail she observed brought her closer to something bigger. What was most remarkable was that Clara didn't need applause to keep going. While the executives paraded through the halls, certain they ruled the world, Clara was silently building her own plan. Perhaps they didn't realize it, but Clara wasn't just a cleaner. She was the beginning of one of the most transformative stories ever told. And now the question arises, how many Claras go unnoticed in your life? And what if one of them is about to change everything, just as Clara was about to do? Sterling and Hayes was one of those companies that boasted success with impressive numbers and flawless ad campaigns. But those looking from the outside had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. The corporate culture was suffocating, marked by unethical practices, abuses of power, and an impenetrable hierarchy that made it clear who mattered and who didn't. Clara, as a cleaning assistant, saw this every day. In the building's hallways, whispers of veiled threats, intimidating glances, and meetings where vanity spoke louder than ethics were routine. Have you ever worked in such a place? It's like being in an environment that drains your energy, where every mistake is punished and every achievement is ignored, unless you're at the top. The managers at Sterling & Hayes had a peculiar way of exercising authority, humiliating subordinates to affirm their power. Clara overheard the muffled complaints of workers, especially those in lower positions, such as assistants and secretaries. For many, the days seemed endless, filled with impossible goals and inhumane pressure. Interestingly, while everyone competed to survive, Clara observed how this dynamic eroded the morale of everyone around her. It's a bitter but powerful lesson. Toxic environments don't just destroy careers, they destroy people. And yet few have the courage to stand up. Have you seen something like this? Perhaps you've even felt it firsthand. But what made this culture persist? It was a combination of complacency and fear. Clara noticed how the few who tried to expose issues were quickly silenced, often fired or isolated. CEO Mark Owens had a reputation for inflexibility and arrogance, and his leadership style made it clear that there was only room for blind loyalty. Clara, however, knew that beneath that veneer of power lay a fragile system, sustained by the fear of those below. It's like building a house of cards. It looks solid, but any disturbance can bring it down, and Clara knew she was gathering the pieces needed to cause that disturbance. What was intriguing was that, while many saw Sterling & Hayes as a symbol of success, Clara saw a fortress full of cracks. Every disrespectful interaction, every greedy decision, and every unethical practice was like an alarm for those paying attention. She knew the company's toxic environment reflected a bigger problem, unchecked greed that ignored human value. What no one realized was that Clara was closer than they imagined to exposing it all. After all, have you ever noticed how great empires can crumble because of small flaws? And the flaws at Sterling & Hayes were starting to pile up. What no one at Sterling & Hayes imagined was that Clara held a secret that would change everything. She wasn't just a dedicated employee. Clara was, in fact, the company's largest shareholder. This fact, unknown even to the executives, was the result of an inheritance left by her late husband, Daniel, one of the company's early investors. For years, she kept her position hidden, preferring to observe the company's operations and the behavior of its leaders up close. Just think about it. Someone everyone ignored was, in reality, the most powerful piece on the board. Intriguing, isn't it? Clara knew that true power didn't come from being noticed, but from knowing when to act. Daniel had been a visionary man, investing in Sterling & Hayes when it was still an emerging company in 1998. His confidence in the idea made him one of its major shareholders. After his death, Clara inherited his shares, but chose to keep her position discreet. While others fought for titles and salaries, Clara sat on a fortune. This strategic choice reflected her intelligence. She wanted to know the company inside out before making any moves. Think about it. How often do we judge someone by their appearance or position without imagining what they truly represent? Clara was living proof that underestimating someone can be a fatal mistake. Clara used her anonymity as an advantage. Her routine as a cleaning assistant put her in direct contact with the true faces of Sterling & Hayes. Executives showed their true colors when they thought no one was paying attention. Clara, however, wasn't just a passive observer. She absorbed everything, and piece by piece, she began assembling a larger strategy. Ever realized how seeing things from a unique perspective can be an advantage? Clara exemplified this perfectly, turning her position into an opportunity to gather invaluable insights. What made Clara truly exceptional was her ability to balance indignation with strategy. She didn't let anger cloud her judgment. Each passing day was a new opportunity to strengthen her plan, and she knew the time to act was drawing near. After all, a story of transformation doesn't begin with impulse, but with careful preparation. Now consider this. What would you do if you had the power to change an unjust situation? Clara knew that soon enough, everyone would realize the person they had overlooked was the one most prepared to change everything. As the years went by, Clara felt a growing indignation as she witnessed the unethical practices and abuses of power at Sterling and Hayes. Every dismissive comment, every greedy decision, and every disdainful glance only fueled her determination to act. But Clara knew that significant change required patience. Instead of acting impulsively, she began gathering evidence. Records of conversations, documents left behind on desks, and even informal testimonies became part of her arsenal.